I've never done anything with a gun. I've never held one. I wouldn't know what to do with it if I had it in my hands. But there are other ways to fight and to resist. And with every nerve of my body, I believe in saying, no more, enough. In my lifetime, beginning in 1929, the United States has been involved in one war after another, overthrown one government after the next, Iran, Chile. I wouldn't want to dirty my hands with the defense of that country as a country. I believe with all my soul that the United States is not a model to which other nations should aspire, but that we should be on our knees asking forgiveness for what we've done to Native Americans, what we've done to the 4 million African Americans who were slaves at the time of the Civil War. So when Alice speaks of the different variations of conscientious subjection, with me it became a matter of not just a refusal to take part when the next war came along, but I'm off the train with the whole project. I don't believe America is the indispensable country. I believe that in the presence of Muslim terrorism and extremism, I say that the United States may be the greatest obstacle to the welfare of humanity on the face of the earth.
I would believe that before you went to Vietnam, you had an analysis of imperialism, especially U.S. imperialism. Did you see the U.S. action involvement in Vietnam as an expression of American imperialism, sort of carrying on from the French imperialism, which had been there?
Well, I'm smiling when you ask that question because I recall how during that war we kept looking for some obvious economic motive. Was it rubber? Was it tungsten? Was there oil in the bed of the sea off Vietnam? And I think that was superficial. They wanted not to make the same mistake that they felt Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain had made in dealing with Hitler. When he came back from a meeting with Hitler in 1938 and spoke of peace in our time, and the next thing you knew, Hitler had invaded Czechoslovakia. And I think the people I mentioned, the Ivy League would-be generals, they wanted to stop what they considered the Czechoslovakia of the communist invasion of the world. Yes, Vietnam was a small country. Yes, there were no obvious economic interests to be served. But Czechoslovakia was a small country. Austria was a small country. And so these men, in good faith, profoundly misguided, I think, felt we have to stop this thing at the doorstep. We let them take this first step, and who knows where it'll end. Of course, as is so often the case with conflicts, each side feared what the other side would do next, and so the conflict escalated.
I understand what you're saying, that the United States was concerned about the expansionism of communism, Chinese or Russian, Soviet communism. But underlying that, wasn't there a basic economic, imperialist, capitalist purpose to be
Absolutely.
opposed to communism?
Absolutely, and one can see it more obviously, for example, in Iran. Their head of state, Mossadegh, nationalized foreign investments in oil. Mexico, in the 1930s, nationalized its substantial oil resources. At this moment that we speak, in 2014, the United States is encouraging the government of Mexico to privatize that enormous accomplishment of the Mexican people. So in some situations, Chile, in 1973, I think that economic North American mining interests were much closer to the surface of events. So yes, I mean, we have to understand that in any of our lives, the most significant thing that may have happened is that in the 1970s, the United States basically gave up manufacturing within the continental United States and went looking for other countries where they could pay men and women, children, a tenth of what working people were paid in the United States. Now that's raw imperialism. People say Lenin is out of date. He pretty accurately predicted what this country did at the end of the 20th century. So yes, I couldn't agree with you more that underneath it all is the desire to create an American economic century for the sake of the super profits of American corporations. If I knew a way, I used to feel during the Vietnam War that I was like the kids in Hungary who dug up paving blocks and threw them at tanks. If I knew a way to put my body in the way of our treatment of other people, I would quite possibly do it, but I don't.
Last spring, Staughton and I, together with a friend who, in the Catholic Diocese in Youngstown, conducted a series of classes on peace building and nonviolence. And one of the topics had to do with the just war theory. And some of the Catholic doctrine that the amount of force that's used should not be disproportionate. That is, it may be necessary under the just war theory to resist if you're being attacked. but it's defensive, it's not aggressive, and that you should only use the amount of force necessary to stop the aggression that's being imposed on you. And another concept is that you don't kill civilians. If there are civilians in the situation, you're supposed to take the precautions to just hit the military targets and not the civilian targets. Well, I think many Catholics and many non-Catholics have come to the conclusion that there is no longer such a thing as a just war. Civilian casualties are inevitable, given the kind of warfare, aerial bombardment, nuclear attack, whatever it may be. There are going to be civilian casualties. The drone may target the so-called terrorist and kill his wife and children, whether or not they get him. The massive use of force is not proportionate, and I don't think it's possible anymore. Even if you believe that there are some situations where military involvement is necessary, is the right thing to do to protect one's community, one's fellow human beings. Modern warfare is out of control. It cannot, as presently being fought, comply with the requirements of a just war.
The Strategic Bombing Command of Great Britain and the United States, about halfway through World War II, decided that the way to win the war was to bomb the civilian neighborhoods of German industrial cities. Now, the evidence is that the bombing had exactly the opposite effect. The bombing had the effect to cause people to feel, well, I don't know that this war is a good idea. I'm not going to defend everything Germany has done, but my goodness, raining this indiscriminate death from the sky, that I'm going to oppose that. I'm going to volunteer for the Neighborhood Watch Association and so on. So even before Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there was a strong case to be made that at the very least, the military strategy chosen by the Allies violated every aspect of the theory of just war. And then on top of that, you have the firebombing of Tokyo, which killed more people than the atom bomb at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And the incredible presumption, I'm talking about the view of history, that the people who had just dropped those bombs brought together German and Japanese defendants and presumed to try them. I don't say they shouldn't have been tried, but to say that only one side was justly in the dock for their actions it seems to me so pretentious, so much the classical Greek crime of hubris, of overweening pride. The United States of America invading Iraq, with which it had no quarrel, to find nuclear weapons that weren't there. I mean, have we taken that in as a people? People in Washington talk, oh, well, yeah, there was this strategic miscalculation, but it's good we got that guy out of the way, and created what? A
Chaos,
country,
absolute chaos.
absolute chaos.